Paris, France, is a city known for its iconic landmarks and charm, commonly referred to as the City of Light. But beneath one of the most beautiful cities in the world lurks a mysterious darkness, an endless sea of human bones, stacked from floor to ceiling, and stretches more than 200 miles across a labyrinth of tunnels. This underground world of the dead is known as the Paris Catacombs. Millions of people go about their daily lives without realizing this hidden world directly beneath their feet. Many do not know it exists, and most will never see it. And today, we're going down there. The journey into the catacombs starts above the ground at the Place d'Enfer Rochereau. From the outside, nothing feels unusual about this place. It is surrounded by bustling Parisian city life. You have cars driving by, people sitting at the cafes across the street, and everyone just going about their day. The entrance itself is a nondescript dark green door with no markings to warn visitors how drastically their world is about to change. Only a limited number of visitors are allowed at any given time, and after a few security checks at the entrance, you are only steps away from the noise and movement above. The entrance leads to a narrow spiral staircase that takes you 65 feet beneath the street level. There are about 130 steps, and the slow descent feels like an eternity as the winding staircase takes you deep into the belly of Paris. Once you make it to this point, there is no going back. There is only one way in, and with each step, the noise of the outside world fades away, replaced by the hollow echo of your own footsteps. Finally, we made it to the end of the stairs. There is an eerie stillness, and the air is surprisingly cool. We are not yet close to the bones, but this is where the real journey begins. Dimly lit tunnels with low ceilings that stretch on forever lead to where the bones are stored. The smell of damp stone fills the air, and the light grows softer as you go deeper into the twisting, narrow tunnels. The silence here is different, and water drips slowly from the limestone wall above. After walking for several minutes, there are still no bones in sight. You may begin to wonder whether you've come to the wrong place, but we are on track. This adventure is not for the faint of heart or those with a fear of narrow spaces. Markings on the walls show the date when these underground corridors were built. Others indicate the streets directly above your head, a subtle reminder that the entire city continues its daily life just a few feet overhead. These underground passages date back to the 13th century, when the tunnels were first used as underground quarries to extract limestone to help build the city. The stone extracted from these tunnels helped build some of Paris's most iconic landmarks, including the Louvre Palace, Notre Dame Cathedral, and many major bridges and buildings that shaped medieval Paris. Although these tunnels seem to stretch endlessly, we are slowly getting closer to our destination. And despite the long journey, what you see is just a small portion of the underground world beneath Paris where visitors are allowed. Behind locked doors, scattered throughout the corridors, lies a far larger labyrinth. Many of these sections are structurally unstable and considered so dangerous that it is illegal to visit them. The catacombs stretch more than 200 miles beneath Paris, forming a labyrinth of tunnels where it is surprisingly easy to get lost. Over the years, thrill seekers drawn by curiosity have ventured beyond authorized sections, hoping to discover something hidden. But some of them become lost in the darkness, never finding their way back. One of the most well-known cases dates back to 1793. A hospital doorkeeper named Philibert Aspert wandered into the tunnels alone at night. Somewhere in the darkness, Aspert lost his way and became trapped within the maze. His body was discovered 11 years later, only a short distance from an exit he never found. The danger of the tunnels is still real even in modern times. In 2017, two teenagers visited a part of the unauthorized section of the tunnels. They lost their sense of direction and became lost in the total darkness. Luckily, they were rescued after 3 days. Yet despite the risks, these tunnels attract a horde of explorers who call themselves cataphiles. These are mostly young Parisians who explore the restricted sections, entering through various hidden access points scattered across Paris. Cataphiles have a bizarre love for the underground world, and some of them spend days and nights exploring the dark web of tunnels below the city. It is frighteningly easy to lose all sense of direction down there, where there are no phones and GPS signals. But these underworld explorers rely on maps they created themselves. There is no limit to what they do down in these tunnels. Some see these dangerous corridors as a way to escape from the reality above, while others engage in art and music. But less innocently, these underground spaces have been linked to drug deals and other illegal practices. In the early 2000s, police stumbled upon an unbelievable secret in the catacombs, a fully equipped underground cinema, along with a bar and restaurant deep in the restricted catacombs beneath the Trocadero. When police returned to the site a few days later, the equipment was gone, leaving only a note for the police that reads, "Do not search." Moments like this serve as a reminder about the dangers of these mysterious underground tunnels. After what feels like an endless walk through empty tunnels, the atmosphere begins to change. Maybe it's the air that feels heavier here or the overwhelming silence. But whatever it is, there is a strange feeling as we approach what feels like we are stepping into another world. And indeed, it is another world. The following inscription welcomed us at the main entrance of the Paris Catacombs. Arrête, c'est ici l'Empire de la Mort, which simply means, stop, this is the Empire of the Dead. This is not just a sign. It is a chilling warning, informing those who wish to proceed that they are about to experience another world. The tunnels we've been passing through before now were mostly made of stone and brick, but this is about to change. We are immediately welcomed by a massive pile of bones stacked from floor to ceiling. At first, your brain struggles to process the enormity of what is before you. Layers of long bones, mostly femurs and tibias, are neatly arranged into walls, alternating with skulls to form a haunting yet decorative display. The first impression is that all these bones look the same, but in the deep silence of the catacombs, the realization finally hits you that each skull belonged to a person who once walked the streets above. These are real bones of actual people who once had lives. Just a few feet inside, and the number of bones everywhere is unbelievable. These are the bones of at least 6 million people, arranged into intricate patterns. This is indeed an empire of the dead, and there is something strangely unsettling about being surrounded by so many bones that you just can't explain. All these bones belong to someone who woke up one morning expecting another ordinary day, maybe a baker in medieval Paris. The skull next to it could be a revolutionary protester, a mother, or a child buried centuries ago. They probably had worries, ambitions, felt love, argued, dreamed, and never imagined they would end up here. Their lives once mattered as much as ours do now, but right now they have all been reduced to anonymous piles in the darkness. The careful organization and artistic arrangement of the bones almost hide the terrifying scale of what you are looking at. Behind the visible walls are hidden piles of bones several feet deep. This illusion makes the catacombs both beautiful and disturbing. The Paris underground tunnels were not designed to be a graveyard for the dead. They were originally quarries where limestone was mined over centuries to help build the city. However, the old quarries were eventually abandoned, leaving behind a vast labyrinth of forgotten tunnels beneath the city. Over several years, the city above continued to expand until much of it was built directly above the old mines. But by the late 18th century, something unexpected happened. In 1774, along Rue d'Enfer, a massive sinkhole appeared and swallowed buildings and people. The long-forgotten and abandoned mines had begun to collapse under the weight of the city. More sinkholes appeared across Paris over the next few years without warning. leading to widespread panic and public outrage. Of course, where we are exploring is safe, and we can visit this historical site because it has been reinforced, as you can see, thanks to the incredible work of Charles Axel Guillaume. Guillaume was appointed inspector of the newly established Department of General Quarry by King Louis XVI in 1777. The goal was to map out all the forgotten tunnels under Paris and reinforce them before the sinkholes would destroy the city. Over the next few years, Guillaume and his team worked tirelessly to save the city from collapse. They dug more tunnels to connect isolated networks, leaving behind this vast labyrinth you see today. But at the same time that Paris was trying to fix the danger beneath the city, another crisis was unfolding above the ground. Cemeteries at the heart of Paris were overflowing with dead bodies. Since Roman times, Parisians have buried their dead on the outskirts of the city, but when Christianity grew in popularity, people started burying their dead in church cemeteries within the city. One of these was the Les Innocents Cemetery, which was the city's oldest and largest. More than 20 parishes and 2 hospitals have buried their dead in this cemetery since as early as the 8th century. But soon they ran into a problem. There were no more spaces to bury new bodies. So they began digging up old graves and storing the bones in charnel houses to make more room for new bodies. Unfortunately, there was still not enough space to keep up with the number of bodies that needed burial. Large pits were opened and thousands of bodies were stacked up to 10 meters deep. These mass graves were reopened repeatedly so that old bones could be packed and stored in charnel houses to make room for new bodies. But it became so bad in the 18th century that cemeteries were filling faster than bodies could decompose. Decaying flesh could no longer be absorbed by the soil, oozing out a soap-like substance known as corpse wax. The crisis was most severe at Les Innocents Cemetery, which bordered a central, busy market where the living and the dead quite literally competed for space. The smell of rotting bodies was so horrific that it was impossible to ignore. Residents called it miasmas, or bad air, which was believed to spread disease. After massive public protests, Parliament issued decrees in 1765 for churches to move their after massive public protests. Parliament issued decrees in 1765 for churches to move their cemeteries out of the city. The church initially resisted the move because it relied heavily on burial fees. But after much pressure, the cemeteries were finally closed and new bodies were not permitted to be buried there. However, the church was still opposed to moving existing bodies. It took another crisis to finally seal the fate of Parisian cemeteries. In 1780, under the heavy spring rain, the basement wall of a home near the center of the town collapsed. Hundreds of decomposing corpses from the adjoining Les Innocents flooded the basement. This was the final nail that led France to declare that all the bodies should be evacuated and transferred to a new location outside the city. But where is a good place to keep the bodies of 6 million people buried over 5 centuries? The answer is down here in the Paris Catacombs. Transferring the bones down here helped solve the looming health crisis above, while providing structural stability to the abandoned limestone quarries beneath the city. When you look around you and see all these giant mountains of bones, you begin to understand that this place is not just about death. It is the memory of an entire population carefully preserved. But this place was not always like this, with bones thoughtfully arranged to form intricate designs. This bone wall right here represents the first remains transferred to the Paris Catacombs beginning in 1785. These are the very bones from the bodies at Les Innocents Cemetery. In December of 1785, workers began exhuming bodies from Les Innocents at night. Tombs, common graves and charnel houses were emptied of their bones. The remains were loaded onto wagons draped in black clothes and moved at night in a ceremonial procession, led by a priest. This was done as a way to respect the dead, but also to avoid hostile reaction from the Parisian population and the church. There is a hole right above us. This was an old quarry well, and it was through this same hole that the bones were dumped several feet down into the unknown. We are standing exactly where bones were once scattered across the floor and piled in heaps. It's hard to imagine how creepy that would look without the proper arrangement we have today. All the bones from Les Innocents were moved from the very first to the last and dumped into this well. This continued well until the French Revolution in 1789. During the Revolution, people were buried directly in the catacombs, but as soon as the revolution was over, workers continued to exhume bodies and dumped them in the catacombs. These bones are from different cemeteries across Paris, with some dating back centuries. What you are looking at here represents over 1,000 years of Parisian history. Medieval peasants, plague victims, aristocrats, revolutionaries, and unknown citizens whose names have vanished but whose presence remains intact in these tunnels. In 1810, Ericard de Thury took over from Guillaume as the new inspector of quarries. De Thury did not like what he saw when he came down into the catacombs. Bones were heaped up in total disarray. The catacombs opened to the public a year before de Thury took over, but he ordered that the bones should be neatly arranged. He gave the workers the liberty to make some of the decorations that we see today. They left signs with the bones describing which cemetery they were disinterred from. De Thury was also a scientist, and he conducted one of the earliest experiments in the Paris Catacombs. He put 4 goldfish in a bowl to learn the effect of total darkness on them. The goldfish survived, but after a while they became blind and were unable to reproduce. But de Thury was not the only one who experimented down here. French photographer Félix Nadar took the first photographs shot with artificial light in the catacombs. Today, the Paris catacombs are illuminated by electric lights, but early visitors used candles as their primary source of illumination. The empty skills down here would definitely be an eerie sight in the dark if their candles were blown out. De Thury did not just give the catacombs their present look. He transformed the dead into education. Some of its earliest visitors include royalties like Napoleon III and Charles X of France. But beyond the catacombs' title as an empire of the dead, it played other significant roles in the history of France. During the Nazi occupation of Paris from 1940 to 1944 during World War II, the catacombs provided a safe shelter for the French resistance. The French resistance armed force carried out most of its operations in the tunnels. The Paris underground provided escape routes, hidden meeting points, and safe houses. Colonel Henri Roltanguy led the 1944 uprising for the liberation of Paris from these same tunnels. The official name of the Paris Catacombs is the Paris Municipal Ossuary, and it has remained a fascinating site since it was opened to the public in the early 19th century. Just when you think you've seen everything, there is always something new to see. Tunnels after tunnels are packed with bones, but the deeper you go, something unexpected happens. The bones become less terrifying, but they provoke deep reflections. One of the many engravings in the catacombs reads, "So all things pass upon the earth, spirit, beauty, grace, talent, ephemeral as a flower, tossed by the slightest breeze." After what seems like an eternity walking through these tunnels, an exit finally appears. Another narrow path, but this one takes you back to the land of the living. But this is a surreal experience that stays with you for the rest of your life. The catacombs are a grim reminder of our shared inevitable future, and that we have no control over what happens to us once we are no more.